Welcome to the Retzel Health Law Hotspot. Health Law Hotspot is a podcast for physicians and health professionals that covers the legal issues and trends that affect the healthcare industry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Health Law Hotspot. I'm Ericka Adler, shareholder at Retzel and Andrus and leader of our healthcare practice. Today, I wanted to talk to those physicians out there that may have sold their practice to a hospital, private equity, or other buyer and are now reaching the end of their relationship that was required by the deal documents. So over the past few years, we have sold many practices, and most of our physicians entered into a commitment to remain for 3 to 5 years. As those target dates are met, some physicians will stay longer, and others are ready to retire or to leave. So I've been receiving a lot of questions lately about what are some of the things they need to think about when they're getting ready to leave. And of course, the answer goes back to reviewing the documents. So first of all, we want to make sure that we understand exactly what the time commitment was and how notice is given. In some of these contracts, notice has to be given before the 5-year expiration date, for example. Otherwise, the contract automatically renews, maybe from year to year or some other interval of time, and you can only give notice of non-renewal before the contract renews again, in which case you may have missed your opportunity if you're not aware of what your contract requires. When we negotiate contracts, we try to make sure that once you've spent your 5 years there, that you can terminate without cause after that point. But not all buyers are cooperative. So if you have a 5-year contract that required 6 months notice before the contract renewed for another 1 year and you missed that opportunity, most likely the next time you can give notice is 6 months before the next 1-year renewal. So understanding how to give notice is very important. Second, what happens with your malpractice when you go to leave? For some physicians who have been working a certain number of years and are of certain age, there may be no tail obligation. For others, there may in fact be a tail obligation if this is them terminating without cause or providing a notice of non-renewal. So it's important to understand what your tail obligations may be. Next, we have the non-compete to think about. Now, in most of the transactions that we do, there's going to be a non-compete in a couple of different places. There may be one in the sale document. Most likely, the non-compete in the sale document will end once you've completed that 5-year term. However, there's also one in the employment agreement, which will run for a period of time once you leave. So the fact that you have completed your 5 years, for example, does not mean that you're walking away without a non-compete. Most likely you'll have a 1 or 2 year non-compete that survives termination of employment, especially if you're the one giving notice of non-renewal or of termination without cause. So it's very important to understand what your ongoing obligations might be if you're one of the doctors who in fact is leaving and planning to continue to practice medicine. Now remember, sometimes these non-competes are not just about the clinical practice of medicine. So if you're just intending to own a practice, consult with a practice, etc., you might still be covered by this non-compete. Finally, if part of your original transaction included rollover units, then there may be another non-compete tied to the ownership of those units, which runs until you terminate the ownership of those units. So you need to look at the operating agreement and the documents related to any units or shares that you may own to really get guidance on that particular topic. I've seen this written in any number of ways, and so there's really no one approach that works. But of course, the reason you're leaving can affect not only the value of those units, but can also impact the non-compete. Who can you take with you when you leave? Well, maybe you have family members working for you. Maybe you have long-term employees. You need to check your document to find out what it says about solicitation and if you carved out any particular people that are working for you. These are really important items to consider. What happens if you're leaving, and others who did the transaction with you are not leaving. Maybe nothing, but there can be a tie-in between who's leaving or how many of the original members are leaving. In some documents, if a certain number are leaving, it will trigger an opportunity to buy back the original practice. If you have that kind of language in your document, you want to look at it carefully, particularly if you're interested in buying back the practice. Often this will involve some negotiation of a purchase price or other similar types of transaction. If you're going to take back your practice, you'll also need to think about what that looks like. It looks a lot like starting a new practice. So you may need to either get a new provider number, new payor contracts, etc. So there can be a lot of work involved. So now that you're reaching the end of your commitment to either the hospital or the private equity buyer, there are some opportunities that are opening up, but there's still a lot to think about. So if you're considering going back into practice or engaging in any type of professional related activity, it's important to go back and take a look at those original documents. This is something that is unique based on the deal and the particular seller and buyer that were involved. So make sure to talk with your lawyer, your accountant, and potentially your financial advisor if you had some rollover interests to make sure that you're not doing anything that could financially impact you in a negative way, that you're on top of all the implications that might be involved when you go to leave, and that you're not missing anything in terms of timing. And although I mentioned timing impacting notice, timing can also affect other items such as bonus or other financial triggers in your compensation arrangements. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to call me or reach out to eadler@ralaw.com. And again, I'm Ericka Adler, leader of the healthcare practice at Retzel and Andrus. Please join me next time, and you can see all of our podcasts at ralaw.com.
The Retzel Health Law Hotspot is made available by the firm and its attorneys for educational purposes and to provide general information, not to provide specific legal advice. Use of the Retzel Health Law Hotspot does not create an attorney-client relationship between you and the firm or any of its attorneys. The Retzel Health Law Hotspot should not be used as a substitute for competent legal advice, and you should contact an attorney in your state about any legal needs or questions you may have.